What if the biggest money problem facing the middle class today isn't low pay, but the illusion that higher pay should already be fixing everything? On paper, the story looks encouraging, because wages are rising, employment numbers look strong, promotions still happen, and raises still come through. Yet, for millions of people who are clearly middle class, daily life feels tighter than ever, with bills arriving faster than paychecks, savings shrinking instead of growing, and stress never fully shutting off. This isn't a story about laziness, poor budgeting, or reckless spending, but about how the rules of money quietly changed, while salaries rose just enough to make it look like progress was happening. Once that shift becomes visible, the pressure finally starts to make sense. The first uncomfortable question hits immediately, because if salaries are rising, life shouldn't feel this hard. The answer is simpler than most people expect, because money isn't about how much you earn, but about what your money can actually buy. A raise feels good for a moment, until rent increases, grocery prices climb again, insurance premiums jump, and utilities edge higher. Before long, the raise disappears without ever improving quality of life. When income rises 5% while essential costs rise 10%, purchasing power moves backward even though the paycheck number is higher. That gap is the salary illusion, where people earn more money but gain no additional control. This is why so many people feel like they are running faster just to stay in the same place. The real shift begins when people understand real income instead of gross income. Real income is what remains after unavoidable expenses like housing, food, transportation, healthcare, insurance, and utilities are paid. When those costs rise faster than pay, financial pressure grows quietly even when salaries look healthy on paper. A raise that vanishes into rent or insurance isn't progress, it's noise. Tracking what is left after fixed costs tells a far more honest story than tracking what arrives before expenses. This mindset change alone removes much of the misplaced self-blame people carry. Inflation makes the situation worse because it doesn't affect everyone equally. Middle-class households spend most of their income on essentials like housing, groceries, childcare, vehicles, healthcare, and insurance. These categories are also the fastest rising. Wealthier households spend a smaller share of income on necessities and own assets that often rise with inflation. Homes appreciate, stocks grow over time, and businesses can pass costs forward. Inflation quietly transfers purchasing power upward while squeezing those who live paycheck to paycheck. For the middle class, it feels like a slow leak that never stops. Savings erode, progress stalls, and stress compounds. The response isn't extreme frugality, but defensive financial awareness. Housing becomes the biggest lever because locking costs where possible creates long-term stability. Avoiding lifestyle choices that permanently tie income to rising fixed bills reduces future pressure. The goal isn't to live smaller, but to live with margin. This leads to a deeper divide that explains why some people move ahead easily, while others fall behind no matter how hard they work. The difference is assets. Over the past decade, asset values surged while wages lagged behind. Home prices rose sharply, rents followed, and financial markets climbed faster than paychecks. Two paths emerged, one for people who owned assets, and one for people who relied entirely on income. Owners saw wealth grow passively, while earners watched the finish line move farther away. Missing an asset cycle reshapes what feels possible. Home ownership gets delayed, security gets delayed, and financial independence moves further out of reach. The answer isn't risky speculation, but learning ownership basics early and consistently. Small, steady ownership beats perfect timing, because waiting for income to catch up rarely works. As costs rose faster than wages, debt quietly filled the gap. Credit became the pressure valve that kept life functioning. Credit cards paid for groceries, loans stretched longer, and by now, pay later turned daily spending into future obligations. Debt helps at first by smoothing life and maintaining routines. Over time, interest pulls future income backward. Monthly payments stack, and flexibility disappears. People aren't buried in debt because they failed, but because borrowing became necessary to maintain stability. Debt becomes a bridge that holds everything together. But bridges charge tolls. Monthly payments steal future choices and limit resilience. This is why so many people feel trapped even when they are doing everything right. A useful shift here is intentional debt use, asking whether borrowing improves long-term stability or simply delays discomfort. Lifestyle inflation is often blamed next, but the term is misleading. Much of what looks like lifestyle inflation is actually cost inflation disguised as choice. Housing standards changed, education became mandatory, healthcare became unavoidable, and connectivity became essential for work. The price of being normal rose quietly. The response isn't deprivation, but clarity. Choosing margin over image reduces pressure over time. Financial friction adds another layer of stress through taxes, fees, premiums, and service charges that leak cash every month. Small leaks don't matter much when income is large, but they matter deeply when margins are thin. Periodic audits can quietly restore cash flow without changing lifestyle. Job security has shifted as well. Jobs may pay more, but they feel less stable, with weaker benefits and more risk pushed onto workers. Emergency funds and flexible skills matter more than ever. Income resilience now matters as much as income growth. This is why the numbers feel wrong. Averages erase lived reality and smooth over rent spikes, medical bills, and regional cost explosions. People feel squeezed because they are. This isn't prosperity, but survival disguised as stability. What helps isn't shortcuts or fast wealth promises, but clarity and control. The middle class didn't fail, the rules shifted quietly. Higher income doesn't always mean higher power. Until that difference is understood, the pressure continues. If this put words to something that has felt confusing for years, share it with someone who feels the pressure but thinks they're alone. More clarity changes more lives than higher salaries ever could.